There are many different strategies for interviewing applicants for a position in the agency. There's a couple of strategies I don't see a lot, certainly not as much as what I believe the value of them are. And that's why I want to take a moment to talk about two of my very favorite types of interviews. The first is a virtual interview. In other words, you're doing it with webcam. They're not sitting in your agency. They're at home and or wherever they happen to be. And you're using webcams. Skype is a good option. Zoom is an option. There's a number of resources you can use to do that. But here's the reason you want to look at and consider a virtual interview. Your staff, your agency, it is inevitable that technology will be more and more important as the years go on. We know that for a fact. We've known that millennials, which is the big segment of your market that's coming up, I know right now, most of your customers are probably boomers, but that's changing. And as the millennials come on board, using technology is much, much more familiar to them. And so you're going to want to make sure whoever you interview, and especially whoever you hire, you want to make sure they are comfortable with technology. You want to make sure they're comfortable using a webcam because, again, it is going to get more and more common, whether it's video proposals. Video is going to become more and more a part of your life. So do a virtual interview for your very first interview. One of the benefits of that is you get to see the person in their own world. I did an interview for an agency in California, and the owner asked for me to conduct the interview, and I was more than happy to help you with this also. And the applicant's laying in bed with a bathrobe on, with a laptop sitting in her lap. And I said, "Oh, are you prepared for this interview?" She said, "Oh, I didn't realize you'd be able to see me." Well, it's a virtual interview using webcam. This happened to be on Skype. She did not understand that I would be able to see her. That tells me something about this individual. And by the way, this individual did not get hired. And not just because of my feedback, the owner came to their own conclusions as well. But when you do a virtual interview, you get to look this person in the eye. You get to find out, are they comfortable with technology? You get to find out things that you don't any other way. It's a wonderful way to determine, are they going to be a fit for the level of technology that you're going to use in the agency, even if it's just over the phone. The phone is a different type of remote contact with your customers, but it's still a remote contact. So virtual interview ties right in with the people you want to grow your agency with over the next 5-10 years. The second type of maybe a little bit unique kind of interview that I'm going to recommend to you is a lunch interview. Now, why do I think it's important for you to take your applicant out to lunch? They know how they are supposed to perform sitting in a conference room, sitting in your office, going through the typical questions that you may go through. They're prepared for that. They are probably not prepared for a situation that is social. So you're going to again see a different side of them. And emotional quotient, finding out what their emotional level is just as important as finding out what their intellectual level is. Yes, you want someone knowledgeable, but you want someone who can communicate, who is kind, who is considerate, who respects others. You find that out really, really well in a lunch interview because you watch how they respond to the service staff. You find out, are they good conversationalists? Are they just stuck on things about themselves? What kind of questions do they ask? You find out things that you don't know any other way other than sitting down in a social setting with them. I read about one business owner and did something kind of interesting. He, and I don't necessarily recommend you do this, but I think it definitely was interesting. This business owner paid the service staff, paid the waiter to mess up the applicant's order. And I don't mean a little bit, I mean majorly mess it up. What was the reason for that? Well, it's very simple. The business owner wanted to see how the applicant would handle a conflict. How would they respond to the service staff? How would they respond to the person that messed up their order? Would they be courteous? Would they be understanding? Would they communicate well? Would they blow their top and get angry? It was a really interesting technique to find out how is this person in a social setting. Zappos, that I'm sure you're familiar with, Tony Hsieh, one of the things they do, if they have flown someone into Las Vegas to interview at Zappos, they'll send a car to pick them up at the airport. And before they hire someone, after the interview, they'll talk to the driver that picked them up and say, was the person kind? Were they considerate? Did they talk with you? Were they a good conversationalist? That applicant did not know the interview started as soon as they landed and got in the car from the driver that picked them up. That's when the interview started, which was in a social setting. So social interviews are very, very important. They'll let you know things you don't know any other way. Social interviews as well as virtual interviews, consider them for your next hire. I promise you, you're going to get a much, much better understanding of the person, which means you're going to get a much, much better fit for your agency.